Streaming, okay. Zoom out. Are we live? Yes, we're live!
Hi.
Hey guys, I was trying to focus at the very last second. Let me know if we're out of focus, because we took that one down to the wire for some reason. For no reason at all. Hello.
Can you hear us tonight?
Yeah.
Do we have audio?
Can you believe we went 2 minutes last week without audio? Unbelievable. Thank you guys for showing up.
Yes.
It is Tuesday night. This is Mike and Lauren live. High five. And we do this every Tuesday night. If it's your first time watching one of our videos, this one's going to be a little bit longer, a little bit less structured.
Totally unstructured.
Totally
actually.
Unstructured. And we might not have a point. We just want to talk about things that are on our mind. So if it's your first time, you may want to check out one of our shorter videos, any other video really. And if it is not, welcome and thank you. And as you know, there's a chat room to the side of the video player.
Stop saying chat room.
There's a chat feature. What do you want me to call it?
I don't know, just chat.
There's a chat on the right side of the video. We want your opinions on this one because this is just what we were thinking. There's a couple little points in here, and when we get to them,
There are a few little nuggets maybe.
that we didn't quite know which way to sway on it, and we'll get to those in a second. But anyway, the topic for tonight is entitlement versus opportunity. On the tail of last week's episode with Grandma Billy and Lessons from the Great Depression, thank you Grandma Billy if you're watching. That was a great episode. One thing she really drove home over and over again was how important it is that you work for what you earn, work for what you get, and how important that is not only for your own self-esteem, but also for as society and a culture as a whole, which just really came from, that's really strong in her generation. Oh my gosh, okay, audio's fine. AOL chat room 5000, yes. We'll just call it AOL chat on the right from now on. So that was really important to her. And in fact, after we got off air, she shared with us that when she was raising the kids by herself, and I would have to guess what decade, 60s or late 60s, early 70s, and she was alone, she went to, did she say she went to a counselor or something? I'm sorry, Grandma, if I'm messing this story up. Anyway, it was recommended to her that she go on welfare because she had so many kids and she was raising them by herself. She chose instead
To go get a job.
to go get a job. And that's kind of the difference between her generation and perhaps
Is it though?
our generation.
Is it though?
That's the topic of the evening. Is there a difference? Because I don't think it's a secret that, are we millennials or we're not millennials?
We just looked this up at work.
There's Gen Y, Gen X, and millennials.
I think
We're either
Gen Y
or-
and millennials are the same though.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
Anyways, they're often called the entitled generation or the participation trophy generation. And there's a lot of truth in that. So what we wanted to talk tonight about is, do we feel like we're entitled? How can we combat that? And also, what is the difference between entitlement and opportunity?
Right.
Because it's very clear that we live in a time of abundance. So are we not taking advantage of that if we don't? Are we not? You know what I mean?
It's hard.
It's hard to say. So how did we get here? Lauren, why don't you kind of talk about that? Like how it went from Grandma's generation to ours.
To ours. Well, I had also heard a quote about how, this generation so often just wants a handout, and the whole entitlement came up, and I thought that was something interesting. And so we kind of started looking it up, and that's when I found the whole GI generation, baby boomer, into the millennials. And I thought that it was interesting, an article that I read that talked about the GI generation and how it wasn't promised anything, but they worked really hard anyway, without...
And GI generation, I mean, they were off the boat, so they weren't promised anything at all. They were just coming on a hope and a prayer.
Right, and they worked hard without anything to possibly gain, and they succeeded. Well, a lot of them did. A lot of them succeeded, and so they were able to make ends meet. And so the GI generation then, in turn, had the baby boomers and taught them that hard work pays off and that they can get this stable job and a secure income, and kind of to go from there with that if you work hard enough, you can do it. And the baby boomers...
I guess the difference being that they were promised if you work hard, then you'll be given what you deserve.
You'll get the green grass.
Right.
And so then in turn, things worked out for them, and so they went and taught their kids that they can get anything they want, and they're special, and that they don't necessarily need to work, sort of thing.
Well, I don't think it's not necessarily need to work, but that you were taught you can do anything you want, which is interesting. So this is part one of the, I don't know where we really stand on this, because teaching us that we're able to do anything we want, just do what you love, and the rest will fall in place, kind of sets you up to expect those things to fall into place, that if I do what I love, then these things will fall into place. And I think that's where the breakdown is. I don't want to get to that quite yet, but what was the one thing that it was the happiness is reality minus expectations.
Right.
And so it was interesting when we found that people for the GI generation had no expectations, and the reality was okay, so they were pretty happy. And then the baby boomers
they were able to exceed their expectations.
They were exceeding their expectations. Yeah, they had expectations, but reality for them exceeded their expectations. And for us, we've been told, and this is where I don't know. Have we been told this, or do we just expect it? And what the problem is for me is that when I look around at my friends, or just my generation in general, even talking to Jackie about the car stuff, is as a generation, I feel like collectively we expect to have what our parents have right now. So when we turn 25, we expect that we should have all the things that our parents have when they're 55.
Right.
We should have the new car and the nice house and the stable job.
That we like doing.
We
should have the job that we want.
Right. And so I think that's where the breakdown is, and that's kind of where this happiness is reality minus expectations. Our expectations are so high, and the reality is not only are we not, meeting our parents' current situation, but with, I don't want this to become like a political or anything like that, but with problems with the economy or whatever, kind of growing up through the Great Recession, our expectations are even lower than what we thought they were. And I think that's where the problem is. But on the flip side, I can completely go the opposite way. Actually, before we go to the flip side, let's go to the comments because they're coming through. Okay. Remember that point. What were we going to say? On the flip side, the opposite side of our expectations are not being met. I think it's hard to paint a whole... I think it's hard to paint over a whole generation with the same brush, and we are living in a time of no greater prosperity. Interesting, because she was just saying that maybe it's not that we are the entitled generation, but that it's an age group thing. Because it was in Time magazine or something who was it that published that
in the 70s?
In the 70s, they called them
the me generation.
The me generation. So maybe it's just old people calling young people entitled, and that's
entitled and lazy.
That's a possibility. Greg E agrees. D. Hawkins says, today go-getters are missing opportunities for entitlements. That's what we're going to get to at the end. So we'll come back to that. That's exactly what we believe. Logan's Journey says, that's a good point, except popular in the 80s, we were told we can do whatever we want if we put our minds to it.
You jumped.
No, I didn't.
You did. Go back up to Logan's Journey.
Oh, I'm sorry. It jumped up when a new comment came in. Logan's Journey says, that's a good point. Sharuk nailed it. Except I say generations have to deal with the same challenges, which might let you see their similarities. What does that? Did you understand that?
Generations have to deal with the
same challenges. So he's agreeing with him, saying that there's the same challenges for every generation, and we're just seeing it differently. Tony says the self-esteem movement was very popular in the 80s, and we were told we can do whatever we want if we put our minds to it. And that's still the case today. I think even more, especially with all the lifestyle design things that people have. D. Hawkins says World War II gen didn't have the safety nets.
That's true.
That's also true.
I just read another article about that and about how crazy parents are these days, which I don't know. I don't have a kid, so I can't say. I don't know.
Right.
But how, when we were little and even before that, you're allowed to go outside and ride your bike to your friend's house and come back when it got dark, and parents don't let their kids do that anymore.
Right. Greggy says, I agree. I missed Heather. So Heather says, I'm Gen X and I'm amazed by the bad choices I see in my peer group. They act like debt is just normal and that I'm odd for choosing to live without a house payment or credit card debt. Now, this is what I wonder about that. Is that our generation, or did that start in the 50s? And I know it started in the 50s. In the 50s, we had convenience and, the microwave pop up. And as I'm looking back and kind of researching, I don't know what I was reaching it for. Yeah, it was just, the baby boomer time period, that was kind of the feeling overall. And I think that's just trickling down. And not only the baby boomers kind of figured that out, and now they're teaching it to us.
I think, if anything, our generation is going to be the one to turn that around.
Right.
I really do.
I think it's starting to become cool to save again.
Yeah, to be
thrifty. At the very, very beginning of it.
Thank you, Macklemore.
Yeah. Greg says, I agree, Heather. I don't understand why some think debt is normal. You lost me. I don't understand it either. I don't understand why you could hope to have zero money. I don't get it. Okay, so that catches up on comments for a second.
Flip side.
Flip side of what was it? Oh, the expectations. Let me think. I lost my train of thought. Shouldn't have done that.
Tell me more than
I know.
Flip side. Sharuk said you got his name right.
Sharuk, got it right. So, reality is, expectations. I'm sorry, happiness is reality minus expectations. We expect a lot. Where the heck was I going with that? Now I got to go back to notes. I'm sorry, guys. I don't remember it.
I don't know either. I don't know where you were.
I guess the flip side is, this was not what I was intending, but the flip side is, I honestly do believe you can do anything you want in life. And I do believe that you can do what you love and get paid for it. The difference between the entitlement and the opportunity is that I believe we live in an era of abundance and opportunity to have what our parents and our grandparents had, but just little slivers of it. And we have to pick and choose what those things are.
Right.
It's an absolute reality that, as you know, our plans are to retire by my 31st birthday. So to say that we don't live in an era of opportunity, that we can't, that we don't have the tools to maximize our time and our effort, is crazy. Like, we have the opportunity to have a full 30 extra years over our parents' generation and our grandparents' 30 plus years. So I think we can, what I don't like about the reality or happiness is reality minus expectations, is that it gives you the impression that you need to lower your expectations in order to be happy. And I'm not sure where I draw that line. I'd like some input from you guys, because I don't know I don't think you need to lower your expectations. You need to lower your sense of deserving that expectation to happen. I think you can expect to have something happen and work hard towards it.
Exactly. I think there's
a difference between accomplishment and expectations, maybe. What am I thinking? Like, I can't put words to it.
Just that you can't expect it to come to you on its own. You have to work for it or seek it out. Right.
Basically, and I think it's interesting, and even Grandma, when we did the video with Jackie, and everyone was telling her to buy a newer car or a brand new car, even Grandma Billy came, texted me. We had a little text conversation after that video, and she said, well, I bought a new car, and she bought a new car at 78 years old.
And Mike's response was, how did you get around when you were 24?
Right.
She took the bus.
Right.
She didn't have a car, she took the bus.
So I think the entitlement comes in that feel like we're entitled to what our parents have at this age. Whereas our expectations should be to have those things one day, if we choose to have those, but we need to work towards that. Like, it's the entitlement, the line for entitlement is saying I get it without working for it. And I think that's what Grandma was saying too, is that it's not just better, obviously, for society, but it's your own self-worth. If you don't earn something, then it's worthless to you. It has no value. And I think that's where the difference is.
Right. That's what we were kind of talking about last night.
Right.
It gives you appreciation for what you have. If it's just handed over, then...
Right. Let's go back to comments for a second.
If you lose it. I can't speak words tonight.
Sharuk says, you got my name correct. Greg says, I know growing up, my folks said debt was normal, and I'm 34. Yep. Sharuk says, the difference is that you can now finance yourself deep in a hole very easily. If you borrow $200,000, study German polka history, because people were financing these. So yeah, the student loan thing is a whole nother thing. One of my least favorite parts of the internet is, I don't know if you guys read it at all, but we're on Reddit pretty much every day. And every week, I would say probably 3 times a week, there'll be a thread that pops up where it's literally just all millennials complaining about how there's no jobs, their parents had it so easy, everything is hard, we have this debt, they never had that, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with that side of it. That's the entitlement side that I see, that you're expecting, oh, I went to college, therefore I deserve this without anything. Like, I have a hard time believing that that every millennial should be unemployed. I just don't think you can just go out. I don't think there's enough for everyone to basically kind of have a paper pushing type job. Like, at some point you have to create value for society. And I also think it's okay if our generation never makes it to the standard of living that our parents did. Why is that such a bad thing?
Right.
Like, obviously we would like to see that happen, but I think that's the biggest problem is what our expectations are to have the standard of living that our parents had or better, preferably at 25 years old. And that's the breakdown for me where I'm like, okay, well, what if the standard of living is just a little bit less? We live in smaller houses and we drive older cars and we eat in instead of eating out. And then we have it a little later in life and we have to do a job that we can do the job that we love, but we're not going to ever achieve that standard of living that our parents had. We can't have both. We can't have the do the job you love, which is basically nothing. I want to do whatever, and have our parents' standard of living. That's what I was thinking.
There's a lot.
Excuse me. I don't know. Why did I turn that way? Okay, let's go back to comments. We gotta go up a little bit.
Lot.
Great comments, guys. This is awesome.
Seriously,
this
thank
makes
you.
it fun when you guys are going back and forth.
Because otherwise, you would just sit here going,
Okay. D. Hawkins says, the me now culture started with the baby boomers. Their kids became the 60s gen of indulgent and lack of limits. I saw that somewhere. That exact idea. That's very true. FI50 says, my parents saved nothing and resent those who are able to retire. That's a whole different type of entitlement, isn't it? Where or is that just envy? That's not entitlement. Is where, you're angry towards people who are doing better than you for your own fault. I agree, Mike. Appreciation, yes. Oops, it popped down on me again. D. Hawkins, you got an expected level of living, but no work ethic. I think that's the problem. It's those two things. If we could pull anything, I think, away from tonight, it's that we need to match our standard of living with our work ethic. And I think the baby boomers had a great work ethic, and therefore they were rewarded with that standard of living. Where if you feel like we're entitled to that standard of living without the work ethic.
Heather makes the point that we were kind of talking about last night, that a lot of people have trouble with instant gratification. So we live in instant information, and we have trouble waiting. Which is definitely something I know I struggle with.
Right.
When our Wi-Fi goes slow, I get very frustrated. So does Mike. And so that's kind of just us in a nutshell, I think, in our generation. I think so.
Well, it's all we really know.
Right. Instant.
We've never known not instant. Daryl says a good analogy. Gosh, the comments keep scrolling down real fast. Daryl says a good analogy would be for people coming out of school feeling entitled and having a job straight out of school. Yep. Sharuk says they are in debt because they chose to be in debt. Nobody put a gun to their heads. Absolutely agree with you. Eric says that's the whole point of credit, to have things you should get later. That's very true.
Yeah.
And one thing that stood out about the interview with Grandma was that how not poorly she looked at, I guess it's poorly, how poorly she looked towards credit just on that one experience of her parents needing to open a tab or use charge at a convenience store to put food on the table, that she promised she would never have debt to herself. And I think I don't know if that's something that we just need a wake-up call or how we get that or what. Too much MTV Cribs, exactly. Tony says, right, why is that such a bad thing? Part of it is a school system raising employees that can fill in bubble sheets. Students are required to be creative or problem solve if parents don't teach them at home via chores. I agree with that, but how was it ever different? Yeah. Is that a contributor to this entitlement? Or how was it in the 50s and 60s? Did they teach problem solving and creativity? I'm not sure. Heather says, I do think we have a better standard of living now than my parents did. However, I think it comes down to making wiser choices instead of a better salary. Agreed. Breaking the web, I feel the same way, Heather. And take 5 of your couple friends. Your lifestyles are indistinguishable, but incomes vary greatly. That's what's so crazy to me is if you just use your brain and leverage the tools that we have, you can achieve the same standard of living that your parents, minus a couple tweaks and tweaks. Like, if you look at, I mean, we always use the example of a car. I need to think of new examples. But say, if you think of the example of a car as a means to get from A to B and to protect you from the weather and to get you over icy hills, then you can get the exact same thing for $5,000 as you do for $50,000. So as far as standard of living goes, the difference between a $5,000 car and even a $100,000 car are very minimal. Like, we can achieve that standard of living if we just leverage what we have instead. And that's the end of the comments. So let's talk housekeeping real quick and let those comments catch up, and then we'll do the comments and then we'll end it because we're already at 20 minutes and the camera's going to shut off here in like 5. So, housekeeping. What did we have?
I don't think anything.
No?
Do we have anything?
No. Last week we wanted to thank you guys for a great video with Grandma. She really enjoyed it.
Yes, she did.
If you didn't check out
her comments too, she appreciated those.
She kept asking if they were all from family. She couldn't recognize or fathom that there would be strangers on the internet who thought she was cool.
That's really funny.
Yeah. And then if you didn't check out the blog, mikeandlauren.com, it'll be a couple posts down now, but she had some updates she wanted to add specifically about the working for what you earn and also how her faith played a role in her in her life in general. What else?
I don't think anything.
That's all the housekeeping?
I think so.
Cool. Comments are caught up. That was a great show, guys.
Yes.
If you have more, leave in the comments after this closes, and we'll keep up with it tonight and tomorrow morning. But thank you guys for watching, and awesome chat this tonight.
Yeah, seriously. We like that.
Oh, what's going on Friday? Do we know yet?
No.
No, don't know Fridays yet. Sunday's going to be, I wanted to apologize for the chicken coop video. I had all that planned, ready to work, and then it just didn't work, and it was Sunday at 5 o'clock, and I had to get that video edited and posted.
So hopefully it'll work this weekend.
Yes, I'm going to make it work. Thank you for your input. I am going to check into that, the way the circuit was set up as a timer. And I think that's it. Let's end it. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Not